but just the same, he liked to rattle them inside his pocket. A few random pesos and centavos, along with the silver dollar that he used to carry in his wallet, and his rosary that one of the Jesus Christ Loves Everybody women had given him when they were going room to room, tracking down innocent souls that had somehow survived this long without their help. The hunger had hit him more so when he walked into the mess hall. He took out one of his ballpoint pens to jot down the hours that had passed since the last bit of food he ate at breakfast. After listing each hour, he numbered them all the way to 11. 11 seemed like a lot, but he was sure he had lasted longer in the past. He thought if he could make himself think of a time when he was hungrier, it might make him feel less hungry now. There must have been plenty of times. The problem was making his old head remember. His best guess was it had to be when he was a boy and they would work along one side of the river one year and along the other side the following year, then back again, so much so that he sometimes forgot they were two separate countries. And then again, much later, they followed the crops up north. Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Ohio, Indiana. He could remember picking beets. He could remember the onions. He could remember the cucumbers. He could remember the melons. He must have been hungrier then. He and his younger brothers and sisters crowded into the back of the truck, their mother and the baby in the cab with their father, driving all night so they could make it to the next job. He could see himself crouched in a corner, clinging to the wooden slats, the stars up above him like bits of cotton sprinkled across the dark sky. He was still thinking about this when the one with the worried face rolled up in his wheelchair. The wooden table was tall enough for the armrests to fit underneath and let him scoot forward until his chest touched the edge. After locking the brakes, he placed his elbows on the table, then held on to his weary head as if he were trying to decide the fate of the world. A small monitor with a string attached to it hung from the backrest of his wheelchair and then clipped to his collar, ready to send off a piercing alarm if he were to move too far away and slip out of the chair onto the floor. Though the weather outside was predicted to be in the high 90s for the rest of the week, he kept warm with a green ski cap, a checkered flannel shirt, thick sweatpants, athletic socks, and woolly slippers. The gringo with the ugly finger was the next one to guide his wheelchair into the dining room, using his heels to spur him along until he reached the table. "I could eat 2 horses, he said, which is what he had said at lunch, and before that breakfast, and before that dinner, and so on and so on. How about you boys?" The question got only a half nod from Don Fidencio, and even less from the one with the worried face, who obviously had too much on his mind to be troubled with something as trivial as feeding himself. "Say," the gringo with the ugly finger began, "I ever show you boys what happened to me when I worked for Pan Am?" "Only about 600 times," Don Fidencio wanted to say, but he knew better than to acknowledge the question or to so much as look in the direction of the man's left index finger, which was snipped off at the end like a cigar about to be lit. Don Fidencio pulled his walker a little closer to make sure it wasn't sticking too far out into the aisle. His own hands weren't in such good shape either, with a patchwork of scars and splotches scattered from his knuckles to the crook of his elbow, most of them from bumping into this door or that fence or just about anything else that could tear his papery skin. He tried to remember why he had a bandage covering part of his right hand, and when nothing came to him, he went back to inspecting the rest of the walker. All 4 tires, front and back, were made of plastic, but he pressed his thumb into them anyway, same as the men used to do when he drove up to a service station. He rattled the wire basket, where he sometimes carried his number 4 shoebox, the one with the chocolates. Then he fiddled with the extensions on the hand grips, first making them longer, then shorter, and finally moving them back to their original position, where they should have stayed all along. Now, you wouldn't think the tip of a man's index finger would take so damn long to find, but when the rotor on that DC-3 caught me, I was lucky the darn thing didn't end up in Cuba.